FORA.tv. The world is thinking.
So radical inclusion is a vehicle for shifting the collective consciousness of the superorganism we're a part of. It breaks down the barriers of geography, of language, and of politics. So there's at least one there's at least one thing we've started to see. For example, what's happened in terms of just recently here in the video here in Christchurch, for example. If you have a look at what's happened here, like this is one person anywhere in the world uploading a video to the internet and having hundreds of, well, in this case hundreds of thousands, but hundreds of people watching this piece of communication. So what's happened here is that the ideas can spread, and as you can see, like just over the past day or two, it's like almost every country in the world, this is one of the top rated pieces of content. So it's interesting to see because, you know, it's the speed in which these opinions can form and how these can be mobilized. You know, those are the unique attributes of this. And so this phenomenon is, of course, absolutely supported by the internet, but we're not solely relying upon it. So for example, and actually we highlighted this earlier as well, so it was the speak-to-tweet things that were happening with the Egyptian protests, and now it's actually gone beyond into Libya and other parts of the world. The government thought they could block the internet and thereby control this force, but the desire for people to connect en masse is simply too great. So people have found ways around it. And so with over 3.3 billion active mobile phones, and many people being able to access the internet in many other ways, you know, through internet cafes and other means, you can see the possibility of globally participative democracy that can circumvent the existing powers of the state. So we can achieve radically inclusive democracy right now. We can do it today with our existing technologies and infrastructure. So radically inclusive democracy is, number one, fast. Number two, it's unbiased. It's accurate, and it's also inexpensive. And I think that's really a fundamental piece of it, is the expense that's involved with all this. So for example, it's fast, which means because the whole thing is online, so the voting and statistics are instantly available and accessible from anywhere. Analytics can be more than just, you know, website metrics and stuff, just as an example. And then also unbiased, because the process is completely transparent. Voting could happen anywhere. Voting could happen in the privacy of your own home. It could be on a mobile device. It could be in an internet cafe. And radically inclusive democracy completely disempowers intimidators. So, you know, if you've got someone pointing a gun at your head and saying vote in a particular way, you can go and change it later, you know, from a different place anywhere in the world. So it really does start to shift the entire character of what we think of in terms of democracy. And of course, the accuracy statement, as I highlighted before, there'd be no more accuracy problems due to the manual counting process. And no votes would go missing, and kind of most of the human error would be eradicated. So it's accountable, which is a big part of it as well, because anyone can check the accuracy of their voting record at any time. So, and then I think one of the most important ones here as well being inexpensive. So it's powered by the free and open internet. It would be accessible to all countries, whether they're big or small, or rich or poor. So the cost to run an election would no longer be an inhibiting factor. So you can imagine what that might do as well to shift the way it works today. And so the global community benefits from having this kind of transparent democratic process. You know, and having for the first time, what this does also is it allows you to have global votes. You know, like for example, right now, the Secretary General of the UN is voted in by a handful of his colleagues and peers. What would happen if we could actually vote in the people into these larger places like the United Nations from a global perspective? So climate change would be a good example of a way that this could help with those kind of issues. And of course, we could throw darts at this. I'm sure you're thinking about things like authentication or access to the internet. So I guess my first argument would be to say if we could put a man on the moon within 10 years of wanting to do that, and that was done with less computing power than the phone that I'm putting that picture on today, then surely these are just implementation issues we could get past. And so in terms of access as well, there's like also this issue of developing countries. Well, there's a company called O3B. It's a group that's come together, and they're actually, what O3B stands for is the other 3 billion, so it's the other 3 billion that don't have access to the internet. So making internet access affordable for everyone on the planet and delivering this through a constellation of satellites that are already up in the air across the equatorial countries. And then for authentication, there's already systems that are being used. There's one called Green ID, which this is an example of, which is used in the banking sector that does 100-point identification of bank accounts online without anyone ever having to walk into a branch. So, you know, this opportunity is ripe. technologically, we pretty much have what we need to do this. And I think also what we would say is in the banking areas, right? For example, anyone who uses online banking implicitly already believes that we have sufficient authentication to be able to do the things we need to do in this world and to identify ourselves, right? So it's not such a leap to apply this to the voting system.